Hi there guys, another good day in the workshop. Today we're going to do a bit of welding. So this wheel arch, wherever it is, this wheel arch is going to be taken away and we're welding a new one. Let's get on with it. Right, so as I've said before, this wheel arch is pretty bad. So I've got a new one. They're not fantastic, most fantastic fit in the world, but it does work. So we've got a new one like that we're going to fit in. I do see a lot of people when they fit these like this that they cut all the way up to here and weld in that whole new panel. There's no real need for it. What I'm planning on doing is cutting it there all the way around, because I don't need to do it. The more of this panel that I cut, especially as I cut into this piece here, which is a bigger piece, there's the more risk that this will start to warp. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take it down as close as I can. I'm going to use that edge as much as possible, follow it all the way around there and all the way around there, which means that the warpage risk is a lot smaller. So I'll be cutting it kind of along this edge here, which means that I'll be able to cut off just that little bit. Any filler, anything like that will all be masked off by this joint here. So I will probably start from about there, go all the way up there, all the way down, and then I need to do that bit. I've took away some of the sound deadening and stuff from the inside. You'll see that there's a hole there now. There it is. So I'm going to get rid of a bit more sound deadening there, this sort of stuff. So I'm going to get rid of that so it doesn't burn too much. Had a quick look in there to make sure there's nothing in there. There was some bits of paper and stuff, so got that out of the way. I'm going to keep the boot lid open all the time to get in some fresh air. And I've took out the back seat, took away the panel there so that we can get into there. The other thing I'm going to do now is remove the tank. I want to get rid of the fuel tank completely from the car. I don't want it there. I don't want to risk setting fire to anything, so I'm going to take the tank out. It does have a dent in it, so I'm going to replace it anyway. So I'll go all the way around here, and then I'll cut across that line there, and I'll replace this piece as well. As you can see, when I put the new panel up, it does kind of cover almost all the hole, so it'll only need a little patch panel. So let's crack on with that. Right, so as I said, tank's got to go. As you can see, as with a lot of things you found with this car, somebody's driven like rally with it or something, so it's got a massive dent in the tank here and here. I could try and press it all out and stuff like that, but I've got another one for another car, so I'm not going to bother. I'll just remove it instead. They're quite simple. You've got a tank sender somewhere up there, you can see it there, and it has a cable and it has a fuel line, which is just there. So I'm going to remove that end of the fuel line, and I'm going to bung that line up with a bolt or something in the end of it, just so that there's no fumes going out into the air when I start to weld. Then there's 2 bolts there and 2 bolts there. That's all that's holding the tank in, and then I'm going to get the cradle stand on it to lower it down again. So I'm going to crack on with that. Right, so that's the tank and the neck removed, which gives me a good look inside there now. And as I've said with the rest of the car, it's pretty rust free. It's a really nice car, this one. Like I say, it's not a bad job to do. I will put a bolt in there or something just to plug up the end of that so there's not fumes that's left in that line in the air when I start to weld. So I'll get that done and then I can start lowering the car back down again and having a look at the wheel arch. Right, so like I said, now there's no risk of fire with that now, and I've cleaned most of the inside of that out. Right, so like I said, I want to join about along that line there. What I'm going to do right now is cut probably about here, a bit further down, about a centimetre down, to cut down, because I want to see what the inner wheel arch looks like in there. I do know that, I'll try and get it on camera, that part of the wheel arch, especially the inner lip here, has rotten off, and it's, as you can see, it's from about there round to about there. So I definitely know that I've got a bit of work to do on the inner arch, but not enough to warrant me changing the whole inner arch is what I'm looking at. So I've bought a nice piece of steel there that I can make a new lip for this edge here. So I'm going to start by cutting about a centimetre. I don't want to go all the way up there, I want to go into the middle there. So let's crack on with that. Right, so I've cut about a centimetre down from where I wanted to cut, all the way around now. There. Right, I've used these special pins here. They're called something like Clico or something like that. These are called Clicos or Clico or something like that. Use them like that. They have a special tool, this one, so it hooks onto that part there and sits in that little cup there. When you squeeze it together, that comes out, goes into a hole that's pre-drilled. When you close it again, you'll see that that opens up and it allows it to squash the panel together. They're really easy to put panels on, as you can see. That one is there with a couple of pins and it's sat there. If I want to take it off again, I just pull the pins out and pull the panel off. Right, so the panel is pretty much where I want it to be, and the new piece, now it looks a bit Frankenstein at the moment, but it is there, a new 2mm piece. I did start by using these Clicos and things like that to hold it in place, but because that is one strip of metal that bends in, it bends around the wheel arch there, but it also bends in that direction, so it bends in two directions at the same time. I decided that these screws would work, so I screwed them into each other and it did actually manage to pull the gap in fairly tight actually, and it now allows me, I'll try and switch on the light for you, it does now allow me to be able to grind off the back of there, weld it wherever I can, like there for example. I'll be able to weld it in a few spots to hold that piece in place. I'll then be able to release it from these screws, undo all of these screws, leaving this new piece in place, and then I'll be able to replace the bits of the metal on the original wheel arch where it doesn't touch, but places like there I'll be able to weld, there I'll be able to weld. So I'll be able to go around and kind of tack it in place in a few places. There I'll be able to weld, for example. Most of that I'll be able to tack it in place as tight as I can, and then I'll be able to take out all of these screws and take the panel away, leaving this in place, and then I can replace the metal back there. So that's the next job. Right, I've got a bit of welding done there then. So it's tacked in a few places there, and it's tacked in those places there. Now what you'll see here is that there's a big gap in there. It is touching there, but as you can see the metal is pretty bad there and pretty bad all the way around here, even though it is touching there, which is where it should be. But as I can say, the metal's bad there and there, for example. So what I need to do now is cut out a section that's about that big and weld in that section all the way around there. So that is going to be the next job, is cutting out a new section for that. Let's get on with it. Right, so I've just marked it up, and that black line is where I'm going to cut to for the new piece to go in. So all the way around there. Right, so that's a couple of sections welded in, very small pieces. I'm doing about 10 centimeters at a time, so there'll be, I don't know, 6-8 pieces that go in there, and that will make up the new inner wing, and I'll be able to grind it all off nice and neatly, ready to cut at this section here. So I want to carry on with that. So that is all that now welded up. What I'm going to do now is go around it with a grinding disc, grind it all off nice and smooth, check for any small holes. I did see one just there, so that'll need to be fixed in a few minutes. Other than that, that is pretty much done, the inner wing, I think. There's still a bit more to do down there, but as I'm doing that bottom corner, I can do that bit at the same time. So I've not forgotten about it. Right, so that's the panel back in again, and it all lines up exactly as it did before along that edge. So all the screws are in. I did have to make a couple more holes just to allow to pull this back in again, because it had moved very, very slightly, so it just needed to pull it in again, but that's all there now. So this panel matches now up with the inner wing. Next video is probably going to be me cutting this panel, the black one, first, cutting it along this line here, probably to about there, so that I cut it off there along with that edge there, keeping all of this black edge here to this line here, then going across there. So all of this lot will be cut out next time, all of that line there. All of this will then be gone, and I'll only have to weld this little tiny edge here. So join me in the next video and we'll see how we get on with that. Thanks a lot, and bye bye.